Okay, so this video serves as a continuation, or really more of a remake of my previous video, which explained the source, which was finally found, of the samples, the two samples used in King Crimson's Larks, Tongues, and Aspic Part 1. And when when I'm referring to the two samples, I am not referring to the newspaper readings done at the very end by David, Bill, and Jamie, as those were made available through the 2023 Complete Recording Sessions Blu-ray set. This is the sample I'm referring to.
Did I ever show you where the persecutor shot the praying weaver, my dear? To go home, mother. It's good for you, dearie. How was Eric in it? He's in gone. It's a sad story. He used to come here and pick the flowers and think of the strange ways of the Lord and His glory.
And this one.
I wouldn't worry about that sore throat of yours. A good hanging's the best cure for it, I know. Second job. It is the sentence of this court that you be taken from this place to the Tolbooth of Edinburgh, there by the hands of the common executioner, be hanged by the neck upon a gibbet until you are dead.
Because there are no credits on the album, this led to intense discussion and intense may be too strong of a word. Discussion and debate over what the source was. The earliest discussion I could find was in the Elephant Talk newsletter, specifically in issue 58, back when it was still called Discipline. This is from the 2nd of October, 1992. And nothing was really achieved by that, but that was just the first discussion I could find of it. But in issue 410 from the 18th of August, 1997, a user claimed that their friend was very, very certain that the voice was German. I think there was one word they picked out that they were certain about, and that they thought it was specifically Adolf Hitler speaking. 411, the newsletter that came after that, someone else responded, except they thought correctly that it was a Scottish voice, not a German voice. And then on the 20th of August, 1997, in issue 413, someone else made a very assertive claim that it was not just Hitler, but also Eva Braun, having an argument or something. I don't know how legitimate that person thought their claim was. The other source I looked at was Sid Smith's authoritative biography in the Court of King Crimson, which claims, I'll pull up the quote here, that it was a radio drama that was being recorded. That it was Mirror's idea to use voices in this way, and Bruford recorded them directly off his radio at home. The play he recorded, Gallowglass by John and Willie Bailey, was chosen totally at random. So that's what led me to looking into Gallowglass, this play that Sid Smith is talking about. In fact, and also in 939, issue 939 of Elephant Talk, someone else also refers to this, citing the Elephant Talk FAQ on their website, which has that same claim, which appears to have originated in the David Cross newsletter, which was a Yahoo group that is no longer accessible as Yahoo Groups was shut down, and it was a private group, so it was not archived with, however, there is a large archive of these groups. Now, there are two significant issues with this claim. First of all, the quote, which is only available, I believe, Sid Smith does not use the quote. It's on the Elephant Talk FAQ. They have a quote that they claim is the one used in the coda. It's got a few of the same words, but it's definitely not the correct quote. And also, this only refers to the second half of the sample, not the first half, or the first part. And when looking into Gallowglass, I found out that it came out in 1991, or was written in 1991, which is many years after 1973 when the album came out. So this can't possibly be the source of the sample. So that leaves me back to the drawing board. Now, I wish I could find this again, But in a comments section for some upload or maybe a re-upload of Larks Tongues and Aspic Part 1, somebody in the comments made the suggestion that the sample could possibly come from a Scottish, because it was Scottish Voices, mini-series that aired in the BBC in 1973, around the time the album was being made of Weir of Hermiston, which was an adaptation of Robert Louis Stevenson's unfinished 1903 novel, which I have right here. So I looked into, well, let me get back to that in a second. I can't find that comment now. I've looked through every comments section. The only comments I found that reference it are my own comments. It's almost like the same problem with Gallowglass, in that the only reference I have are references of that reference. But anyway, I looked into a transcription I made of the sample, and there's a woman talking about specifically a praying weaver getting shot. So I had that written down. And then somebody named Duncan Jopp being, well, I didn't have the name quite yet, but I picked out the name from the book, because I went through the book and I found many references to a praying weaver being shot. And then also in a section, that a chapter that's completely focused on the matter of the hanging of Duncan Jopp. It didn't have the quote, but the name that was in the transcription that I couldn't pick out was pretty close. And now I knew this had to be what the source is. So I went to the BBC radio archives to find the dates of when this show came out. And the dates matched up pretty well. So part 1 was first shown February 15th, 1973, and was re-aired on that Saturday at 8:15. Part 2 was first shown February 22nd, 1973. Well, they're all 1973. Part 3 was March 1st, and Part 4 was March 8th. And each of those the following Saturday, which was 2 days after that, because these were all shown on Thursday, they were re-aired. So that kind of pinpointed me, and also just within the book, where, like the first half of the book, that it was most likely either part 1 or part 2 that were used here. So I tried to seek out this show, but there were no home video releases of it, no VHS, no DVD. I couldn't find anything of it for the longest time, until about 6 months into my search, I found the title card, but that wasn't very helpful. I did confirm, though, because I got in contact with who published that title card, that they had, because they were, they wrote for the BBC or something like that, that they had access to the BBC archives, and that the show still exists in their archives. But I live in the States, and also I don't have the authority to take anything out of their archives. I found scripts were available at the National Library of Scotland, but I couldn't check those out. And one other source was the BFI had videos in some format. I think it might have been DVD, but it's probably more likely VHS of these 4 episodes. Possibly there was a truncated version that was shown in 1978, I believe, that was like edited down, but that's obviously not the case, because that's 1978 and this is 1973 we're looking for. So that left me at a dead end for a long time. That's when I made my first video, when I kind of said, I'm almost certain this is it, but I can't actually prove it. And another place where, in that video, how I proved that it still existed was there was a show, Watching Ourselves, 60 Years of Television in Scotland, which I also couldn't find, but it had used clips from Weir of Hermiston in it, and I could confirm that through the closed captions. After months of asking around, I found other people that were looking for it, not for this purpose, but I don't know why. I found on YouTube somebody uploaded a clip from it, which I immediately contacted that person asking where did they get it. If they had it, they could share it. And I found out that this individual ran or has run a service for a long time called Robert's Hard to Find Videos, which specialized in these kind of rare, unreleased, or lost, almost well, they're not lost because they exist, but hard to find shows and movies from this time period. And his website was not available for some reason. I couldn't find any other references to him on the internet besides a few reviews. But he had a phone number, so one day after classes, I called him. I think I woke him up actually, and I asked if he had it, and he said he did, and that he would sell me a digital download of it. So I immediately bought it off of him. And as soon as I downloaded it, I went through the first episode. It was a DVD rip, oddly. And I found the first clip, and I found the second clip, and here are those clips.
He used to go over there and I'd come and pick them and take them home. Did I ever show you where the persecutor shot the praying weaver, my dear? I want to go home, my love. I must take my walk. My Lord's orders, you can. Take time off your piety books and your sins. Go for a walk. It's good for you, dearie. How would Eric did it? His own hand. It's a sad story. He used to come here and pick the flowers and think of the strange ways of the Lord and His glory.
I wouldn't worry about that sore throat of yours. A good hanging's the best cure for it, I know.
Persecutor,
Second job.
persecutor,
It is the sentence of this court
bloody
that you be taken from this place to the Tolbooth of Edinburgh, there by the hands of the common executioner, be hanged by the neck upon a gibbet until you are dead, which is pronounced for doom.
So this confirms it. So this means that Bill did not record off his radio. He recorded off his television, because unless I don't know exactly how his setup was. I don't know what it doesn't matter. But this also confirms that it's part 1, so the very first episode, which narrows down the date that he could have recorded that segment to the 15th of February 1973. You could be more specific and say 8:30 or 9 p.m. Or he could have recorded it on the 17th of February 1973, which was when they re-aired it at 8:15. So according to the Complete Recording Sessions Blu-ray set, the last session for the album was on February 1st, 1973. Now that was for Book of Saturday. For Larks 1, the last recording session was January 30th, when they did all the masters. So this leads me to conclude that the song was already finished maybe before they had the idea, and obviously before they put the sample into the song, which corroborates, or doesn't corroborate, but it's kind of what David was getting at, David Cross, in his quote that, the trick, as I remember, was to calculate the start point of the tape effectively so that the word dead coincided with the D major chord that initiated the coda of the piece, blah, 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 blah. Now, it's not D major. I think Sid Smith's quote said G, because D would be when it's most certainly, that sounds really bad with all the distortion, but that's because David and John's part, I think John is doubling it, is which is definitely G. So I don't know, it's probably a long time since he played that song at that point. Anyway, that's it. That's all I had to say about that.